Hi, everyone. Welcome to the AOA live stream. It's great to have you with us today. And it's an exciting topic because this is a huge part of solving the housing crisis. And it's also a huge way that you can increase your revenue. And so here at AOA, our goal is that you would be successful. That's our goal for you. And just maximize your investments, your rental investments for sure. That's what we'd love to do for you. And that's why AOA exists. I'm the president here. We're one of the largest individually organized groups of apartment owners in the state. And there's so many different things that we offer, but I just want to say that we are open to walk-ins, so you can come walk in. It's more efficient if you schedule a time, call ahead a little bit, schedule a time. That way we can get you through quicker, but walk-ins are always welcome. And one thing that we will have set up, that we do have set up now, is with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Foundation. You are now able to come in and sign the petition to get a measure on the ballot to repeal the death tax that got through last time. So we want everybody to get involved, and I know there's a lot of people that are circulating the petitions, and so you can sign anywhere, but our officers are available for you, and just something that we want to do. And also I just wanted to mention, man, I had a real difficult time opening up the move-in packet, and we have there's a new file format in the PDF, and it's great, and everything looks great, and it's not all stuck together. You can just click on the ones that you want and download them, and it's really amazing. But getting there for some of you is really challenging. If you have an Apple, no problem. But if you happen to have a Windows 10 computer, Windows is devious, and what they've done is they made it so that whenever you open a PDF, it uses their browser. It uses the Microsoft Edge, and I didn't realize that, and I was trying to open that packet of forms, and it just doesn't open that way. So you have to right-click it, and then you have to open with the PDF, the Acrobat PDF viewer. And so it takes a right click, and then so you download it, you got it on your computer, you got to right click and then open with, and then the best way to do it is just to save that default. When you do that right click, if you look all the way down, it says open with another, and then you could save it that way, so that you could set it up that way so it just always opens with the Acrobat. Anyway, I know that we've had people call in wondering how to do that, so I want to mention it now before you even hear that you have a problem, because sometimes if you don't even know that it's doing something different than what you expect, it's impossible to figure out how to do it. So anyway, it's a better system that we're moving to, and so I just wanted to give that update to you as well. Man, last week, if you missed it, we had an ex-gangbanger, a guy that ran a gang, literally, and he was called a shot caller. He came on and shared how to protect your property, how to deal with all that stuff, and it was awesome. And he also had 10 years of property management experience, so just the perfect person to share with us. And if you didn't catch it, definitely go back, AOA USA on YouTube, and you could watch that video. It's very good. And if you did watch it, did you put anything into action? Like we said, knowledge is not power, but knowledge applied is power. And so I took one small step to clear up some things, to apply some of the things that he suggested. And so with all of these things, we can provide you with information, but remember that action is the key to it. Tomorrow, we do have Dennis Block speaking. This is for everybody who owns property in LA County specifically, because there was just a brand new moratorium, that resolution, that was passed, and it will impact all owners in LA County. So please, please, please tune in. If you think that it's just LA unincorporated, you're misinformed, And so this is something that's very serious, and we are speaking with our legal team. We're even speaking, so I won't say what we're doing until it is completely done, but we have some things in the work to combat this. And so anyway, all that to say, you make sure you're opening up the emails. If you're not on our email list, please subscribe. You don't even have to be a member to get on that list and get updates. We want you to stay in the know. What you don't know may cost you a fortune. So please do that. And you can, the more that you share these videos, the more, if you hit the like, then those things go out more and more. So if you'd like these things, other people, if you like the information you think other people would benefit, hit the like button. We don't advertise with Google, so it's not like it's benefiting us. We're just putting this out there to benefit everybody. And anyway, this event, it's sponsored by ADU Gold, and they are a consulting agency and construction. They go all the way from the very beginning all the way to turnkey, and they have just some really beautiful things that I've seen them put together. They'll do a strategy session with you and then have a designing, planning, and permitting. They'll go through those phases with you as well. They serve LA, Ventura, and Orange County, and they have a network of 200 people that are actively involved in all that they are doing. And anyway, so our speaker today is the founder of ADU Gold, and he's called Mr. ADU. He has done 1,300 home renovations, 30 years of real estate experience, and then in that he realized that it's real estate development was really his niche, and so he's been into that for the last 13, 14 years or so. And so it's my pleasure to introduce you today, Seth Phillips.
Hello, welcome to our presentation, How to Double Your Multifamily Income with ADUs. And I'm really excited today to be able to talk to you about some brand new state of California housing laws that are really going to blow up your real estate investment opportunities. My name is Seth Phillips, also known as Mr. ADU, and I really appreciate you joining us today. In a moment, I'm going to pull up a slideshow and we're going to be talking about it further. And while I'm doing that, I would really like to thank AOA for putting together this amazing opportunity. And, we've worked with them in the past. They've been just great supporters of our company, and you, the audience, have been as well. So I really, truly appreciate getting this opportunity to speak with you today. And I think you're going to enjoy it very much. So, okay, well, I'm going to walk you through a slideshow that will explain to you how you can make money, and I mean big money, by following the step-by-step instructions that you'll receive during this presentation. I'm really looking forward to sharing this information, yes, and it's a lot to talk about and it's a lot to learn. So I'm going to offer everybody that stays to the end of our presentation today a very special gift that'll help you blast off on your ADU journey. So this whole webinar can be summed up in just 3 words. Yeah, just 3 words. Could be a very short seminar, right? No, it's just 3 words. And you have the right to build 3 or more ADUs on your property, period. No planning department, no public meetings, no asking pretty please. It's your right. But of course, that doesn't mean anything if you don't act on it. So I'm going to explain to you how to do it, but it's up to you to make it happen. So let's continue right now. I'm going to start off with just a brief background of me and how I got to my aha moment that set me on my ADU journey. I'm originally from Minnesota, you betcha. You can probably still hear a little bit of that in my voice, but I've lived in Los Angeles for over 35 years. And I've been a licensed real estate broker for over 30 years. I had a very good career in real estate in Southern California, really enjoyed it, was very successful. But then 2008 happened, and literally overnight, I went from having a really great job to being unemployed. So, like a lot of people, I was looking around for other opportunities to get me through that challenging time. So I decided to go into the house flipping business. I had a business partner at the time, and we started buying houses on the courthouse steps, the foreclosures, and we were purchasing them for around 120,000, doing a little fix up to them, reselling them for 160 to 180,000, and making a little bit of profit. But I learned so much during that process. Picking the right property, the right areas to do it, the right improvements to make, and then how to sell the properties. So it was a very, very intense learning curve, but we were very successful at it. But with those kind of numbers, you just can't create a company out of that. So the only way to do that was to scale up. So I had to learn another skill set of how to manage multiple projects at the same time. And we put all the pieces together. We were very successful. One of my partners in ADU Gold and I together flipped over 1,300 homes. So we got the master class in house flipping in the Los Angeles area, and was very, very helpful. But then as the market began to heal, we started to flip homes in more and more expensive neighborhoods. And until we got all the way up to the top of the food chain in the development world, where we were doing ground up new construction in the ultra luxury markets in Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Hollywood Hills. Our most expensive house sold for over $10 million. And that was yet a whole nother learning curve, because those projects are so complicated that from the time you start to the time you're ready to go to market, it's at least 2 years. Well, a lot can go wrong in 2 years. And one thing that we all know about real estate is that it moves in cycles. Sometimes it's moving up, but sometimes it's moving down. And you don't want to be the last man standing when the music stops. So we recognize that we've been in an upward appreciating market for a while now. So we were just starting to get more concerned about when the tide was going to change. So we decided to kind of just scale back and go into a little bit safer area. So instead of being in that ultra luxury market, my partner and I purchased a home in Culver City for $735,000, with the intention of doing the same thing that we'd been doing, which was we would just knock down the existing house and build the biggest 2-story modern box on it, but something more modestly priced, like in the $2 million range. Well, we hired the architect, and right when the architect got done with the plans, I had a conversation with my business partner at that time, and he told me about this new ADU thing. And it hit me like a thunderbolt. I mean, I remember that moment so exactly. I was sitting in the passenger seat in the car with my business partner, and we were driving to look at a property in Ventura County. And something about that concept just really hit me. And I just kind of sensed somehow this was going to be a game changer in my life. So I immediately deep dived into it, researched it inside and out. And the more I studied it, the more I came to believe that this was going to be the future of real estate. So I very fortunately, I was able to convince that partner to completely switch gears. Instead of knocking down that existing house, we just completely beautifully remodeled it. And in the backyard, we built the first 2-story with rooftop deck luxury ADU in the city of Los Angeles. And I'm very happy to say that that crazy experiment worked out, because I said we bought it for $735,000 and we sold it for $1,805,000. So the project was very successful, but it also validated the answer to a question that I get asked all the time, and that is, how much value does an ADU actually add to the property? And of course, that's not a simple question to answer, because like all things in real estate, it depends on the area you're doing it in, the time you're doing it in, and the quality of the product that you build. So the same principles will always apply, but truly, there's no question that that ADU generated tremendous value and it made the project very successful. As a matter of fact, so successful that in the process of doing that, we actually set a new per square foot price record for that area. And that is no small achievement. And that is all, of course, due to the fact that we built this beautiful product. So that's a little bit about my story. And now let's move on to some more of the nuts and bolts. So let's talk about the opportunity. Now, the original California state ADU laws went into effect January 1st, 2017. And this was groundbreaking at the time because it allowed most single family homeowners across the state of California to be able to add one living unit to their property, which had never existed before. And it was a fantastic opportunity, but many cities fought it, some embraced it, and that has evolved over time. And now many of the ones that were fighting it initially are also embracing it. So it has basically kind of worked out. But very fortunately, the city of Los Angeles from the very beginning was a great proponent of these new housing creation opportunities, and they encouraged it big time. And a lot of that has to do with that Mayor Garcetti, because he actually ran as one of his major platforms of creating more housing to help address California's acute housing shortage, which has really hit a critical point. So he was backing it, the city backed it, and since then, there have now been over 17,000 permits pulled for the construction of ADUs just in the city of Los Angeles. Now, this is really important because it provided proof that the concept was actually working, and contrary to the naysayers, it hasn't destroyed neighborhoods. It's actually, in my opinion, has invigorated neighborhoods. So the state lawmakers were following what the different cities were doing with their law to see how it was actually working out. And by having the data from Los Angeles and some of the other communities that supported it, they saw that it was in fact working, and it emboldened them to move even further. So they put together some new ADU laws that added even more opportunity, and they went into effect January 1st, 2020. And under the new laws, single family homeowners can now add up to 2 ADUs. And most importantly, particularly given the audience that I'm speaking with today, the multifamily owners, it added ADUs to multifamily properties. Now, as we're talking today, I'll be talking both about single family and multifamily, but under the ADU laws and under SB-9, they're basically very, very similar. So pretty much everything I'm talking about applies to both. However, that said, the opportunities with ADUs in multifamily are actually much better than they are with single family, because basically there's almost unlimited number of ADUs you can build on a property. We'll get into a little bit more about that later. So, a bunch of smart folks got together with this idea to design smart cities with advanced urbanism. And ADUs offer the appeal of a gentle density that allows for a compromise between suburban stagnation and urban gentrification. And now we have proof that the ADU concept works. And this is really important because we've got it in real life. So let's continue on. So let's talk now about SB-9 and 10. And SB-9 is actually on its face very simple. Same thing as with the ADU laws. For single family homeowners, for most single family homeowners across the state of California, they can now divide their property into 2 separate legal lots, which could be sold separately if you wanted to. And on each one of those lots, you can build 2 living units. So what was originally one single family home on one single family lot now can become, if you choose, to be 2 lots, and each one of those lots can have 2 units on it. So a total of 4 units on a lot that once just had one single family home. So that's the opportunity. And under SB-10, that's a little bit more complicated. And there's one huge difference between SB-9 and SB-10. And SB-9, just as the ADU laws were, that is a mandate, which means all cities across the state of California have to allow this to happen. It's to create new housing, so everybody in the state has to share in the responsibility of creating this housing. So it's a mandate. Unfortunately for SB-10, they caved on that one at the very end before it went for its final vote. So that is not a mandate. So it is not a requirement that all cities do it. It's going to be on a voluntary basis. So some cities will support it, some will fight it, and that will evolve over a period of time. I believe the city of Los Angeles will be a supporter of it, but we don't know yet, and but we will probably pretty soon, because that law did go into effect in this year in 2021. Now, for the cities that do allow it, SB-10 is going to allow almost all lots, including single-family homes, to have potentially up to 10 units built on it, but only in areas that are close to high employment centers and mass transit opportunities. So that's SB-10, and we don't know much about it yet, but I certainly will let you know as I know. And speaking of that, I'm actually having a meeting with the mayor's planning department tomorrow, and we are going to be discussing SB-9 in particular. And they've already told me in this process that the city is very much working on it right now, and they actually are planning on having applications and guidelines published by the middle of this month. So this one's real. This one's happening right now. So this is going to be a great time for you to learn about it and be ready to jump on it when it does happen, because it is really going to offer some real game-changing opportunities for you. All right, so let's continue on. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the process of, as I said, both ADUs and SB-9, a lot of similarities. And the best way to explain the process is to actually use a real life example. So on your screen, you're looking at a property overhead view of one of our clients. And this is in one of those kind of up and coming hipster areas northeast of downtown. That's like a fourplex building on the front, a two-story. And then in the back, you see this kind of open space area. So as I'm analyzing properties, and as I'm going to be teaching you now how you can analyze property, what's the best kind of property to do an ADU on, or SB-9? Well, the simple answer, of course, is the more vacant space or open space you have on your property, the easier it is to take advantage of the opportunity. Pretty simple, right? So if we talk later about any property you have, I will be on my computer and I'll be using this super sophisticated high-tech tool to help analyze it. And it's called Google Maps. And it really is an amazing tool, because now from outer space, I can walk through the backyard of any property in the entire planet, literally. So I can look at from the back, from the side, from the front. I can even measure it all from outer space. So this is an amazing tool that I use every day, and you can too. So this is what we're looking at, a Google Map view. And in the back, you have this basically this open space. But if you look closely where the yellow highlighted area is, there's actually a one-story, like 4-car garage back there. But we're going to be able to knock that down to create the ADU, because one of the golden parts of the ADU laws and also SB-9 is that provided your property is within 1/2 mile of mass transit, which conveniently includes a bus stop, then you have no parking required whatsoever. So this is going to really make this way more possible than it would have been, because parking takes up space. It takes up wasted space, unfortunately, so many of the times that we are evolving as a society now. The millennials are the first generation where car ownership is going down. Why? they're still driving around, right? But they don't own the car. Instead, when they want a car, they just push a button on a phone and it magically appears. And financially, it makes more sense for them to do that at that stage in life anyway. So our whole trend as a society is that there's going to be less cars owned by individual people. There'll still be as many cars on the road, but the cars that are on the road are going to be driving potentially like 24 hours a day. And not too far in the distant future, when you push the button on your phone, the car is going to show up. It's not going to have a person driving it. It's all going to be auto. So it's going to be an amazing new world that we're living in. But if you think about it, the amount of space in our cities that's dedicated to parking is just ridiculous. And huge amounts of it basically virtually never even get used. And we need to find a way to build smarter cities where we can bring communities together better and keep pollution and stuff like that. And cars, of course, are one of the number one things, although electrics is a huge improvement in that area. But it's just all part of our changing environment. And that's why the lawmakers put together these laws that allow for the elimination of parking, because they're seeing into the future about how this space is going to need to be used or not. So getting back to our example, we're going to knock that garage down, and in the backyard, we are going to build a side-by-side 2-unit duplex. This one will be 1 story. Each unit will be 3 bedroom, 3 bath. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the financial analysis of it. So now you can make a boatload of money doing this, and you want to know why? The answer is very simple. Free land. That's right. You get to build this income producing asset on free land because you already own it. The cost of that is already spoken for. So when you're analyzing this investment opportunity, all you have to do is compare the cost of the construction versus the rent it'll generate, the cost of construction versus the equity it'll create. And on that basis, this is always going to be a home run because there is no land cost involved in that financial model. So I'm going to actually use a formula to talk about this a little bit. And this formula is very interesting because it's very commonly used in many other parts of the country, but most people here have never even heard of it because this formula doesn't work in Los Angeles or Southern California in general, because our dirt is too expensive. But here's the rule. It's called the 1% rule. Well, that's pretty simple, right? So this is it. If your monthly rent is equal to 1% or less of the cost of the investment, you have a home run, because at 1% per month, that would mean it would deliver an annual ROI gross of 12%. And I picked this particular example because it exactly fits in that formula. Going back, looking at the schematic, each one of those units in this area will rent for $3,000 a month, which isn't untypical in a better rental income area. Basically, typically comes out to about $1,000 a bedroom. So $3,000 a month for the rent. The cost to build each one of those units is $300,000. So at $3,000 of rent and $300,000 of cost, that's exactly 1%, which means the gross ROI of that property will be 12%. Now let's talk about the equity position. And this is great because it is multifamily calculation. So we can use the gross rent multiplier, which many of you are probably already familiar with. And in this area, for a B+ class building, the GRM would be 11.5. So applying our income number to our GRM of 11.5, that means each one of those units will have a projected value of $414,000. And it cost $300,000 to build. That means when you complete this, you have a new net equity gain of $114,000 per unit, plus that amazing cash flow that it's going to be generating at the same time. I think you can very quickly see what an amazing opportunity this is. This will work on any property in Southern California, basically. And we're excited to talk to you more about that when we get on the phone together or we meet. So let's continue on. So you like those numbers, right? Sound too good to be true? No, remember, it's up to you to make it happen. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about some things about what you should build and why you should build. So I'm going to show you an example right now. And the picture that's on your screen is a picture of that very first property that I talked to you about. This is the property in Culver City. And if you look in back, you can see that beautiful 2-story with rooftop deck ADU that we built. And if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see what looks like would be the garage. And technically, that is the garage. And it could be used as a garage. It's a legal garage. However, when we designed it, we knew that probably the owner of that property would ultimately use that for a family room or a studio space or whatever, something like that. So we designed it out so it could be used that way if the owner chose to do so. And because the property is in back and we have a wood fence all the way around for privacy, and you can see the gate on the right-hand side. And by the way, all of the wood fencing, we finished with this beautiful Shogiban treatment, which is a wood burning treatment invented in Japan eons ago before they had varnish, because it protects the wood from termites and weather and stuff like that. I got so involved with the construction of this particular property, I physically was actually involved in the construction, and the majority of that burnt wood, I burnt it myself with a big blowtorch. So it was just really cool to be part of that process. It really just kind of changed my outlook on it tremendously. And one of the other contributions I made to this is my business partner was a design genius, and he is responsible for the majority of this beautiful design work. But one of the cool features of this property is mine, and that's that glass garage door, which I think really makes a beautiful architectural statement. And it really gives you that ultimate indoor-outdoor California lifestyle thing along with it. So I could share more pictures of that with you later on too. So let's continue. Okay, all right. And let me get my camera back on. 1 second. Okay. All right. I think we're back. Yes, very good. So let's continue on with our discussion. So now we're going to talk about actual construction. And this is a very important topic. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about our services now. We are officially a consultancy. The name of the company is ADU Gold, but we can offer you just consultancy services, information, advice, and resources. But also, and the majority of our customers actually, through our partners, we offer all the way through to current turnkey construction services, where literally we hand you the keys when it's finished and all the stuff in between. But the construction process in California in general, certainly in Southern California particularly, is very complicated. The architectural design engineering process is complicated. The going through the bureaucratic permit process is crazy complicated, and even more so now, and time consuming because of COVID. It's added an extra 2 months to the permitting process, unfortunately. Hopefully that'll change in the not too distant future, but it's complicated. Then of course the construction process is also very complicated. So we offer whatever part of the process you need or want, we can help you with it. And you can do the construction yourself, but do you want to learn the mistakes by making them? And I can pretty much guarantee you the answer to that is going to be a no. So once again, now this is another brand new part of my discussion that the people have heard me talk about before will not have heard this. And that is, from the beginning of my time working with ADUs, I've been getting questions from customers about the possibility of using prefab, modular, factory-built housing options instead of the traditional stick-built stuff, because they've been hearing about it. So I am very keen on the idea, and it is absolutely the future of construction. There's no question about it, because think about it. They used to build cars in the driveway. Well, they stopped doing that over 100 years ago, because it makes much more sense to build them in a factory where you can take advantage of all the efficiencies of that kind of manufacturing process. But strangely, and I do not know the answer to why, houses and most construction housing wise is still built on the dirt, just like it has been since the beginning of time. But that is in the process of changing, because the same thing, those processes, at least the majority of those processes, should be happening in a factory environment where they can take advantage of all those efficiencies and quality control items that do not exist in the field right now. So I've been looking around, and I've looked at all the different options that are available. And there are many, many great companies out there, and I'm not knocking any of them. Great product. But up to this point, there's been 3 points that I've been waiting for before I could actually recommend this product myself. Number one, it's got to be price comparable. Number two, it's got to be quality comparable. Number three, it's got to be able to be built in the same timeline or faster. And up to this point in time, although all of these companies that are out there claim that they're better in all these ways, the reality of it has been, up to this point, I can stick build the product faster, better, and for less money than any of them. And until that changed, I've been just continuing on that path. But I am very happy to say that I'm now working with a new partner that actually checks all 3 boxes. Their quality is better because it's made out of light gauge steel, LGS, which of course is stronger. It's 100% renewable. It doesn't have any problem with termites or moisture. It's just more, it's just better in every way, for earthquakes, for wind, everything. It's a better way to build. So it's made out of that kind of a quality product. And number two is that, of course, they can build it for a competitive price compared to traditional construction techniques. And then the last one is where they're the real winner, is that it actually is speeding up the process very much so. And one of the obvious ways that that can happen, and this is true of any of the prefab stuff that's out there, is that in traditional construction, the first thing you have to do is come in and do the site work, preparing it, and then doing all of the foundation work. And then only after that's all done can you actually start building the product. Now, with the factory built option, and this company uses panelized construction, so it eliminates one of the challenges of the big box method, is that as soon as the project starts, even before they even start the groundwork, they can already be building it in the factory. So they get overlapping processes. While they're doing the site prep and the foundation work, they're already doing the construction work on the unit itself. So that all by itself could potentially easily save you 2 months in overall construction time. Plus, they've already got 7 designs pre-approved through Los Angeles Building and Safety Department, so it will fast track the permitting process too. So the time element will be much better. The quality will be much better. The price will be very competitive to the stick built. So I'm totally behind this new concept. And I'm really excited to be able to share that with you if we talk in the future. So let's continue on now. So now let's talk about one of my favorite topics, is how can we maximize the opportunity as it sits? And we spend time every day thinking about this for our clients. How can we get the most benefit out of any particular property for our clients? And I'm going back to this property that we looked at earlier to give you a couple examples of the things. I talked about the garage. Well, in the city of Los Angeles, in most municipalities, you are allowed to build up to a 500 square foot garage, and it does not count towards any of your square footage living space restrictions. It's an additional 500 square feet. So that's one idea. Another one that we did with this property, if you look up on the roof, we said, what else can we do to enhance the quality of this product? So we built a rooftop deck, and that was a great idea. But when we initially submitted the plans to the city, they said no. Why did they say no? Because if you walk into the planning department in most cities, I'm sure because it's a bureaucracy, you're going to have the same challenge. If you ask them if you can do something that's never been asked before, and remember, this is a brand new product type. We were one of the very, very first ones. We were the first one to ask this question. If they've never been asked it before, their default answer is going to be no. Why? Because they can't get any trouble for saying no. But in these kind of bureaucracies, once they say yes once, then they've opened the door for everybody that comes after. So when he said no, and I made an appointment to talk to him a couple of days later about it, I said, well, this is the way I think it would be fair to look at it. If we were just going to build a 2-story new house on that same lot, and you would allow us to put a rooftop deck on top of that, which I already knew the answer to that was yes. That's already in the code for the city of Los Angeles. If you would say yes for that, then why would you say no to the ADU? What could possibly be the difference between those two? And he looked at me, he said, that makes sense to me. I'm going to talk to my supervisor. And 2 days later, that no turned into a yes. And now this has become the common way that the city of Los Angeles will deal with it, that you can, in fact, add a rooftop deck. So that's the idea. But what does that really mean? Well, I can tell you from experience exactly what that means. It adds tremendous value. It's probably the highest ROI improvement that you can make of any option you have out there. And why? Because the cost of it is actually very low. Think about it. You have to have a roof anyway. So the only extra cost of a rooftop deck are a more durable roof and a little bit strengthened because people are going to be walking on it. It's stairs to get to it. And then the 4-foot pony wall around the outside so people can't fall off the edge. That's it. It's a very low cost improvement. And the value, that is like everything else in real estate. It depends on the area. It depends on the view that will be available from that point. But I can tell you from living through this experience, because once we finished the project, I had to switch hats from developer to salesperson. And as I started to put together my marketing for it, I realized something that just I should have already anticipated it, but it wasn't until that moment that I really got it. This was a brand new product. So I had to invent a whole new language to market it because it hadn't existed before. So to do that, I held this property open every Saturday and Sunday. Plus, I opened up and formed a brand new meetup group, which still exists. It's called ADU Development. And when I opened that brand new group up, within 1 week, I had 100 people sign up. I was just blown away. I mean, there was so much, people were already starting to hear about it. So there was a thirst for this knowledge. So every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I'd hold the house open. And then before the open house, I would have a meetup group. So literally every weekend, I would put from 100 to hundreds of people through the property, touring them through, because I wanted to hear what the response was from the public, because they're the buyers. They're the ones that are ultimately going to determine the value. So we would meet in the front house. They loved it. It was beautiful. Then we would walk out and we'd walk down that driveway, down the side. And it's amazing. Even this 2-story structure from the street, you can barely see it because it's hidden behind the house and the fence. So when we'd walk down the driveway, when we'd get to the end of that front house, they would, for the very first moment, actually be able to see the ADU. It was kind of like one of those move that bus moments. And when we get there, they'd stop in their tracks, they'd reach into their pockets, they'd pull out their phones, and they would just start taking pictures like it was a tourist attraction. And they'd all say the same thing. That's an ADU? I go, that's what an ADU can be. And it was always shocking to them, and they loved it. And then we would tour through the property, and they'd all also always say the same thing then, is that I would rather live here than in the front house. And the front house was beautiful. And I would go, I would too, because it was just a stunning creation. So we would walk through that property and we'd end up the tour on the rooftop deck. And when we got up there, it was just so funny. It was always the same. They would actually stop talking and they'd just start making noises like, what? Wow. And then for people that are in the sales business or in the rental business, you know that when a customer is in the property and they start talking about them living in it, they bought it. They love it. They bought it. They already see themselves living in this space. So we get up on top and they start talking about, we'll have dinner parties up here and it'll be so cool and stuff. So they loved it. As a matter of fact, when it comes to the value of that square footage, and that's like another 400 square footage, it's not under the tax assessor records. It also does not apply towards living square footage restrictions. It's just square footage that is not only usable, but I think if you polled all the people that went through this property, the majority of them would tell you that rooftop deck square footage was the most valuable square footage in the entire property. So yes, it adds amazing value. That rooftop deck, I am 100% confident, added a minimum of $100,000 in value to that property. And that was very important because in the beginning of this project, I was the one that had to put together all the projections on how this product would perform. Very hard to do when you have nothing to compare it to. But I just used all my analytic tools I had, my intuition and everything else. And I had predicted 2 years before, when we very started the project, before we actually got it completely sold and closed, that it would sell for $1.8 million. And it sold for $1.805 million. So I was exactly correct. So, and as I said, we set a new price per square foot record in the process. So yes, ADUs can add tremendous value to your property, and that's something that you should very much know you can do. But remember, it's like all things in real estate. You get out what you put in. So you have to build quality product if you're going to expect a quality result out of the back end. But whatever the kind of product that you want to build, from a simple garage conversion all the way through this beautiful 2-story with rooftop deck creation and everything in between, we can help with you that and give you guidance onto it. Because one of the other things that I've learned along the way, and this is maybe the most important story of all, is that people ask me, okay, so what should I build? And in the beginning, my answer was very simple. Build the biggest thing you can. The bigger it is, the more rent you charge. The bigger it is, the more equity you create. But since we started working with you folks, the multifamily owners, and that's become the majority of our business, I've learned a whole nother philosophy that really changed the game for me tremendously. And that is, it's almost the exact opposite if the number one criteria you're looking for is the product that delivers the highest ROI. And on that basis, it's almost the exact opposite. Smaller is better. And the reason is that the rent per square footage does not go on a straight linear line with the square footage of the property. And that varies neighborhood to neighborhood completely. But in general, we went back and really reanalyzed everything. The smallest unit is still, regardless of how small it is going to get this amazing rental amount. And of course, the smaller you build, the less money it costs. So almost always the smaller product will deliver the higher ROI. So now we've mixed that into our psychology of our whole business. So when we do a feasibility study for you, if you want us to do that, we will give you a financial analysis from all the different ways, the biggest product, the smallest product, the biggest number of units, the smallest number of units. Every way you can look at it, we'll give you some projected numbers of what that'll look like so you can make the right decision based on your risk appetite and how you just see the investment potential of the property. And whichever way you go, that's great with us, because the number one thing is to making sure we have happy customer, because happy customers are the best way to run any business. And unfortunately, a lot of big companies out there seem to have lost track of that, but that is not the case with ADU Gold, and you can count on that always. All right. Well, we're near the end of our presentation, and as I promised from the beginning, for everybody that stuck through to the end, I'm going to offer you a very special bonus offer, and that is a free 30-minute consultation directly with me at your convenience. All you have to do is click on that button to make an appointment. Takes you to my calendar, and you can just pick your time slot, and we'll get on the phone together. I'll be on my computer, and I'll be using that Google Maps. We can walk through the backyard together, talk about your property, talk about your options, and see what's next for you. And that's available for all of you. I'm going to close with one more story, which is important. You know, I feel so blessed because every morning I get to wake up so excited because I get to share this new opportunity with people like you. And I know that I've got an opportunity to actually help improve people's lives. You're going to be able to have more income, or you can use these things for elder care or taking care of adult children, or whatever the different uses are of these structures. This is going to be a benefit for you, and it's going to be helpful. That's great. And then, of course, whoever builds these structures for you, hopefully us, but whoever that is, they're going to make money too. So that's great. People are making money. But beyond that, while that's all happening, the state of California has a housing crisis. And there's only one way to solve that, and that's to build more. And instead of the government just throwing money at it, they actually this time around used their brains and found a way to incentivize regular property owners to build themselves. Government's not paying you to do it. They're incentivizing you to do it. They're allowing you to do it, to take advantage of it. And the net result is, of course, you get to build more housing, which the state critically needs. This is so important. Why is it important? Well, you can see this every day when you drive in the city of Los Angeles. You drive underneath most freeway overpasses. There's homeless encampments there. Why? Why is homelessness growing? The number one cause is the cost of housing is out of control. It's putting people on the streets, and that's just not right. And it's happening because there's an imbalance. The demand is higher than the supply. And until we get that right, this is just going to get worse and worse. So this actually is one of the tools that may help solve this crisis. So this creates a true win-win-win opportunity. You win, the customer. The company that builds it wins, making money building it for you. And our society and the state of California wins because we're doing our part to help solve a crisis in our state. So this is just so important to me. And like I said, I'm glad I get to share it with you. And once again, thank you for attending today. It's really been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you, Jeff, for making this possible. We're going to open it up to some Q&A now and answer some questions. So Jeff, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much. And yeah, let me figure this out. All right. Yeah. So thank you so much, Seth, for sharing with us. And some of you may have hopped on late. And if you would like, there are closed captions on the Facebook site every time, just about, unless there's a technical difficulty, there's closed caption on Facebook. And we're going to make a note of that in all of future live streams that we do as well. And you may have also missed last week's live stream. Definitely check that out. How to protect your property from an ex-gang member. Spent 12 years in prison, and then spent 12 years in property management after that, and really just transformed some properties. So if you want to increase your property value, if you're in a bad neighborhood, or if you want to keep your neighborhood a good neighborhood, you'll want to watch that one. That's from last week, and you can catch it if you go to the YouTube and then put in AOA USA. So that'll work for you. And tomorrow, if you're in LA County, I know not everybody is, but if you own property in LA County, please, please, please watch our update tomorrow from Dennis Block. He'll be sharing. We've put out multiple emails, and there's they're going to roll back, not roll back, but they're going to bring back some tenant protections that are just insane, including not being able to evict for nuisance. And that one should upset tenants, not just us as housing providers, but really such a reckless policy. And, there's totally foundless. There's no reason. There's no scientific evidence that an eviction is going to spread COVID. It's totally ridiculous. It's been ridiculous from the beginning, maybe the first few weeks. This is day 700. We are in contact with legal. We are in contact with other, we are working on doing something about this specifically. And so those are things that you just want to catch for sure. And so I just wanted to mention those before we go into the questions here. And if you didn't know, if you're watching on the AOAUSA.com website, that blue help button at the bottom, you can put a question in there, and that they will funnel that to me. And of course, from Facebook and YouTube, everything's coming in. And we already do have questions. And so thank you for giving the free 30-minute consultation. That's great for everyone. And just cool. I like the light gauge steel concept and just doing things quickly. That's great. Here we go. On YouTube, there's Ivo. Property is located in R1 zoning, 10,100 square foot legal lot, but the building is legal non-conforming as it's 4 one-bedroom units. Can we still split the lot and build 2 units on the new lot?
Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting one, because these legal non-conforming issues obviously brings it into a little bit different, weirder area. But I believe that the ultimate determination will be built based on the zoning of the property as it sits. And so if it's R1 now, it should be able to be subdivided into 2 separate lots. And then on each one of those lots, you should be able to build 2 structures. There's even the potential that you might be able to utilize the existing structure. A lot of that's going to have to do with how it's situated on the lot. Because we're going to have to subdivide, and hopefully if they give us, basically carte blanche and how we draw the lines of the subdivision. For instance, if you have a single family home, you'd like to keep it, but you want to be able to do the subdivision, but your backyard, and I should point out one thing with the subdivision part, there is one important factor to it, is that when you divide it up, you're not allowed to go any further out than 60-40 in the split. So the smaller lot has to be a minimum of 40% of the square footage of the lot. So if your backyard was not 40% of your lot, maybe what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to draw the lot line up so a finger of it goes down the side up towards the front of the property till you can capture that total 40% of square footage necessary to do it. But those things are in, as they say, the devil's in the details, and that's going to be up to the cities on, whatever kind of restrictions they do on the actual lot drawing.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Venice Bazaar on YouTube. I have 3 contiguous 5-acre undeveloped parcels in unincorporated LA County. I was formerly told we could have 1 primary and 1 guest house. Can we have 4 units on each now?
A lot of stuff to unpack in there. If 3 separate lots, is that how it started?
Yeah, 3 separate 5-acre undeveloped parcels.
Okay, well, this actually kind of brings up an important part, because part of SB-9 is that If you have like two side-by-side lots, you can only do one of those lots under the SB-9 guidelines. So it can't be contiguous lots. Just one is allowed in that situation. In terms of, however, with the ADU thing, you could definitely do potentially up to 2 ADUs on each one of those lots plus a house. That's the potential that's there. So you've got a lot of housing options, and one of those lots you could definitely do SB-9 to, probably. Now it does also have one other caveat to it, is that it doesn't apply in true rural areas. It has to be what's designated as an urban area. And there's some fairly simple census tract information you'll be able to look at to determine whether you're in that or not. But that is potentially another issue that you'll have to look at.
Great, 60/40. That's a great one to, to be aware of. All right, on YouTube, we have David. What is the advantage of using a junior ADU?
Well, that's an important question too, because under the newer state ADU laws, you can have 2 ADUs, but when you have 2 ADUs, one of them has to be a junior ADU. And the junior ADU has a lot more restrictions to it than the regular ADU. The most important one being that if you have a junior ADU, even if you just have a junior ADU and not another one, if you have a junior ADU under any circumstances, it does require owner occupancy of one of the units. And that's not just the owner now, that actually goes on as a deed restriction for all future owners too. So that's something to very, very much be aware of in that process.
Wow. All right. Lots to know, guys. Lots to know. So very good. Okay, Ben on YouTube. SB-9 is a statewide law, but you mentioned that not all cities are accommodating this change. I have a triplex in Pismo Beach with a huge yard, which can be used to add ADUs. What do I do if my city is not accommodative?
Yeah, that was about ADUs specifically that he was talking about. Yeah, it's been a very interesting thing, and I believe SB-9 will basically end up following the same path as the ADU law. It evolved, and as laws do, they evolve over time. And initially, many cities fought it, or at least dragged their feet on it. But that's one of the things that when the state passed the second set of ADU laws, they had the opportunity to be able to actually see where it was working, where it was failing. And they saw clearly that the cities that were fighting it, very few, if any, ADUs were being built. So what they did is that they went back and rewrote the law and put more enforcement teeth in it. So now all cities that must comply, and if they don't, they can be fined up to $50,000 a day until they come into compliance. So of course that got their attention. And so many of them jumped on board. But I think even more importantly is that these different cities that were initially opposing it or dragging their feet on it, they also got to see how it was actually working in the cities that were allowing it. And they got to see it really wasn't a terribly disruptive thing, and it was a helpful thing. And so a perfect example is Culver City. They were totally against it in the beginning. Now they are actually offering programs to help people create ADUs, financial programs. So they've come all the way around on it. And I think many cities will. And I'm sorry if the city that you're in right now is problematic still, but they have to do it. So feel free to talk to me about it, and we'll look into it and see if there's anything we might be able to help you with.
Yeah, I think, one of the big problems that we have with the lawmakers is that they really don't understand economics 101. They don't understand simple supply and demand. And everything they're doing, besides this one thing, everything they're doing is really working against a good environment to be able to build quickly, cheaply, and produce more units. And so you would hope that this would be a crack in the door, and that their understanding starts to change. Yes. And even the way that we approach these policymakers, we can vote, but lots of times because we're not in the majority, we're not going to get the people in that really care about us as housing providers. But if we can frame this in a way that it's about providing more housing so that it becomes more affordable, hopefully that will help them. But a lot of them, they don't see that prices would actually drop if there was more supply than there is demand. And so this is a messaging thing that we have to continually work with. We, meaning all of us, as we speak with city council, county, whoever we're dealing with, to get them to understand it. All right. Well, wouldn't it be cheaper to keep the garage and turn that into an ADU?
Say that again, sorry.
Wouldn't it be cheaper to just keep a garage? Like, let's say they have a property, they have a garage there. Wouldn't it be cheaper just to retrofit the garage than tear it all down and put another structure up?
This is a great question. And unfortunately, my answer to it is probably not going to be great from your audience perspective. But here's the challenge. Yes, we can convert the garage into an ADU. Yes, in theory, that should be much, much cheaper. Unfortunately, here's the challenge. Yes, we can convert it into, remember, now it's going to be legal living space. That was built as a garage. And in most parts of Los Angeles, it was built as a garage, not living space, in the early 1900s. So we get to create this new unit, but everything in it has to be brought up to modern day living square footage code standards. And unfortunately, an old garage, almost none of it is up to that level. So we have to do virtually as much work to convert it as to just build it ground up. So unfortunately, that is just the reality of it. And I'll give you a couple specific examples. Unless your garage was built in the last 20 years, the slab, which is on, is not going to be 10 inches thick. So we're going to have to underpin the entire foundation. Plus, all garages share one common feature. They have a big opening where the car drives in. Well, that has to become a permanent wall. For it to be a permanent wall, it has to sit on a permanent foundation. So we have to trench out that opening, put rebar in, put cement in to create a proper foundation for it. Another one is we have to redo the electrical service. It has to have its own electrical service, separate, new. We also, in the city of Los Angeles and in most municipalities, we have to run a separate sewer line from that all the way out to the street, not into the street, but to the street. So when you just put together all those basic things, plus all of the basic structural and cosmetic things, it's just going to end up to be about the same amount of money, a little bit less. And the nicer shape the garage is in, the more of it we can save.
Great. All right. So on YouTube, Kai Trang Ho, can you do this in neighborhoods designated as historic preservation overlay zones?
Yeah.
HPOZ. Yeah.
Yeah. For ADUs, you can. You still have to go within their review process, but they have to actually allow it. But you would have to build it in such a way that it passes all of their architectural review typical processes. And that's actually kind of relates back to the garage thing. Unfortunately, we are going to have to change the exterior of that garage. So even that garage conversion there is going to require that review, because in most HPOZs, if you're not changing anything on the outside, you're completely free to do whatever you want on the inside. But for us to convert a garage, we are going to have to change the outside because it can't have a garage door on it anymore.
All right, Diane on YouTube. What was the name of the wood process that you mentioned in the project that you did when you burn the wood?
Oh, Shoshugiban.
Say it again.
Shoshugiban.
Okay, so spell that for us. Well, I'll put you on the, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
We'll look it up, everybody.
Google that real quick. Shoshugiban. It's very popular. It's just a wood. It's just a fire treatment. You just literally take the wood and treat it with fire, and it slightly chars the surface. And that charred surface is what makes it insect repellent and also make it almost weatherproof at the same time. So wood that you treat that way literally can last 100 years, as opposed to just raw wood, which would rot after a few decades.
Okay, here's a great question, Batul, and she's a great member with us and on often. And her question is, what is the code for the free consultation? So she looks like it sounds like she's signing up, and it says that it needs a code. So just curious what the code might be as she's signing up.
No, there shouldn't be any code requirement. I don't understand what that could possibly be. If there's any issue, if you can't get in, then just text me. That telephone number that was on there is on your thing, is my direct line. So we'll get hooked up.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Yeah, so your number's there, it's showing up. So thank you for that question. So there may be an issue.
The appointment system, if you can, please, because otherwise my phone is just going to blow up.
All right, Sarah on YouTube, do you guys take care of the permits? Great question.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad that they asked that question, because a separate part of what we offer is actually permitting and expediting services. One of my partners, I have two partners. One of them, Taylor Francis, is this genius young millennial, recent law graduate from USC, expert in land use stuff. And he handles all of that permitting, expediting process. And he's just incredible. So love to talk to you about that. Just separate from everything else, that is another service that we offer.
Great. And if I remember right, it's designing, planning, and permitting is kind of like the process.
Right, and then the construction, correct.
And then you hit the construction if people want to do that with you.
Right.
All right. Jermaine on YouTube, according to the Fannie website, multi-unit properties plus ADUs are not eligible for traditional government loan banking. Does this mean any loan would be now be non-conforming? How do you recommend financing?
For ADUs, actually, unfortunately, the major financial institutions, they move like glaciers. I mean, they have the slowest responding entity out there, but they are starting to slowly get on board. As a matter of fact, there's a brand new Freddie Mac program that just came out in November, and it's specifically aimed at ADUs. It's called the Reno Fast Track Loan, I believe, and it offers both purchase or refi money plus construction money bundled together in one federally backed product with the same great interest rates and so forth, and low down payment. So take a look at that.
So again, just search for what? Because he looked on the site, couldn't find it. Yeah. What was that name of that?
Freddie Mac.
Okay, and did you remember the name?
RENO. Just put that in there, you'll find it.
All right, thanks. Janine on YouTube. Can I build an upstairs, downstairs duplex?
Yes. And with the ADUs, it is a little tricky because they did put one thing in there, and I believe this was an accident in the language, because they shuffled a bunch of ADU related bills together into one final bill right before it got passed. And under the multifamily version of the ADU law, you're limited to a maximum height of 16 feet. And in 16 feet, you cannot build a two-story structure. It's just short. However, that said, in the city of Los Angeles, they've got a quirky little version of that law, in that you have the right to build 2 units, right? By right. If you only build one of the 2 by right units, then there's no height restriction other than what the overall zoning is. But if you build both of them, then you're limited to the 16 feet. But that's another one of those areas where we've got to work around for that, because in the city of Los Angeles, once again, what they've already said yes to and allowed us to do is we build an 18-foot high structure, but we embed it 2 feet into the ground. So it's only 16 feet above ground, which meets the height requirement. and we've got 18 feet in which to work with. And the only practical difference that is that instead of the usual walking up 2 steps to get into your property, you're going to be walking down 2 steps to get into it. And that's about it.
Great. Okay, Marriott management. Does SB-9 apply only to single family residences?
Yes, at this point in time, it applies only to single family lots, but keep in mind, single family lots account for over 70% of all of the lots in the state of California. So we're talking about a huge number of properties. And that's really kind of the crux of this thing. That's why I know that some of the NIMBYs out there are going crazy about this or destroying single family. It's not a requirement. It's just an option. It's an option for the owners of the property. We're empowering people, not taking stuff away from them. I don't know how they get that whole thinking going in their heads, but at any rate, it's an option for them to utilize these things for single family. And I think that hopefully the same thing will happen with SB-9 that happened with the ADU laws, that over time they may add multifamily or other sorts of lot designations into it. We'll find out.
All right, Alina in San Diego. Do you work in the San Diego area?
We definitely partner with people that work with this in the San Diego area. San Diego has also been a pretty much a real solid proponent in general. The communities there have been successfully building them for some time. So yes, that is 100% within the scope of what we can help you with.
So you could do the consult on that and then
yes,
hand it off to other or in-network construction people maybe.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, Sheila, here we go. Is there an ADU Gold contractor in the Bay Area?
In the Bay Area, yes, we actually do have some partners that we have. I've gotten to know almost all of the other ADU companies out there. Many of them are really good. Some of them are like, yesterday they were kitchen remodelers and today they're ADU experts. But I knew that was going to happen. I mean, it's a new thing and it's a good thing, and it's construction. So there's good and bad people that are involved in it, as there is in the construction world. But unfortunately, the construction industry has a very bad reputation, and unfortunately, it's unfortunately true in many instances. So you have to be very careful with the people you pick for those processes.
Great. All right, Sheila. What is the code for free? Oh yeah. So yeah, someone else is saying it needs a code. So I think you need to check your site after we're done. I think there may be you may have a technical glitch there. I think it's looking for a code to be able to set up an appointment. All right, or something. Well, who knows? But here we go. Steve, for an apartment, how is an owner able to take over tenants' parking spaces by right in order to build an ADU?
Yeah, well, that's a tricky area, and I'm sure that is going to, kind of like depend on the city you're in. But we run into that issue quite frequently. And basically, my understanding is, and I'm not an attorney, is that you do have the right to do it. But you are in effect going to be obviously modifying their contract, because originally when they signed it, it included parking. And if you're going to remove an asset, then ultimately you might have to compensate them for that. But that's a really cool question, because there's some good tools out there, which you probably are aware of. I found out about this recently. There's online sites now that are just dedicated to parking. And you just Google it, looking for park spot to rent. There's like at least 3 or 4 major ones, and it pops up. You put in the address you're interested in, and a map pops up, and it shows you all the park spots that are for rent listed by people that are willing to rent their space for parking. It's a great tool for figuring out what is the value of a park spot in any given area, because you might ultimately have to reduce their rent by some value number that parking represents. But in general, like in the Los Angeles area, a park spot has a value of somewhere between $50 and $200 a month.
All right, really good to know. So if you're catching this, you may have room for an ADU, and you might also have some parking space that you could sell
Right.
as well. So
Yeah,
there's a
absolutely.
little freebie.
Yeah, it's very cool. More in-
Okay, so Ami Alon, what rooftop deck increase? Oh, does rooftop deck increase property tax?
The rooftop deck itself will, but only to the extent, and this is an important issue too. In the state of California, Prop 13 basically dictates a lot of these things, and unfortunately, we still have that. So when you do an improvement to your property, whether it's adding an ADU or a family room or whatever, when you add legal living square footage, you're going to get assessed a new tax bill on that. But it's not your base tax thing stays exactly the same way, it's untouched. You're going to get a supplemental bill now, but they don't do it based on the value that square footage represents in the area you are, just like SB-13 doesn't. It's exclusively based on the metric that they use of what is the cost of the construction. And you self-report that cost. So that's the number they're going to use in computing your new tax basis on your supplemental bill is the cost of construction, not the living square footage number, the cost of the construction. And that, of course, is much lower than the value of that square foot.
Right, that's great. So this is Justin on YouTube, and I think it's kind of the same question, but is it allowed in Anaheim, Orange, and Tustin? And I think your answer to that, it's going to be yes, they need to allow it, right?
Yeah, but there's actually one little extra caveat to those areas where in the original ADU law, they didn't specifically address it. So a lot of the HOAs said, yeah, you can do it everywhere, but not here. So in that new ADU law they passed in 2020, they specifically addressed that. And now HOAs also have to allow it. It's the same thing as the HPOZs, though. You still have to go by their architectural guidelines, but they do have to allow it. So anywhere in Orange County, which is predominantly HOA communities, it will work there too.
All right, we have Lee on YouTube. Great AOA member. Can an R1 18,000 square foot Los Angeles be divided into 3 lots?
Well, under SB-9, you can only do 2, but you may be able to divide it into 3 lots just straight up, because in Los Angeles for R1, you need a minimum of 5,000 square feet per lot. So if you've got 18,000 square feet, potentially you could do just a normal sort of subdivision. And then maybe I'll also do some SB-9 stuff. That's certainly conceivable anyway.
All right. All right. Okay, yeah, Diane, what is the minimum on lot split?
Well, this is the part that makes some of the people that are against it crazy. But yes, there is a minimum lot size. But the minimum lot size is based on each one of the subdivided lots has to be a minimum of 1,200 square feet, which means you could subdivide a 2,400 square foot lot into 2 lots if you so choose, which really applies because there's many lots in Venice that are 2,500 square feet. So those conceivably could be subdivided too. It's amazing.
All right, Red Rider on YouTube. Much of Los Angeles hillside, Santa Monica Mountains, is high risk fire area according to fire marshal map. Does this negate all of SB-9?
Yeah, that's going to be one of the areas, and you're absolutely right. Just as with the ADU law, Coastal Commission and high severity items potentially can not allow them for their reasons. And for instance, in the city, the ADU law is like that. And initially in the city of LA, the entire center of LA, the big mountain that's between LA normal and the valley, wrong words, but anyway, that mountain most of it is considered high fire severity. So in the beginning, they said, no, you can't do ADUs there. But in the new law, they actually went back and rethought it. And they did allow, with a couple of extra restrictions, ADUs to be built in those areas. but that is going to be a little bit more hit or miss depending on the location and the circumstances of whether ADUs or SB-9 will apply to it.
All right, Bill, which is better to have in the ADU, apartment renting or Airbnb?
Airbnb every day, maybe, but you didn't hear it from me. But yeah, I mean, this is just kind of this is a decision that, all property owners can look at. What is the better model, to go longer term rental or to go to the, all the way to the day-to-day rental in the Airbnb? If you're in the right location and you have the right product, you can make substantially more money with Airbnb. And many of the people that we're building product for are doing that, and successfully, but it does vary a lot. And of course, it is a completely different property management thing, way more intensive. By the way, one more thing on that. There are some now property management companies that just specialize in Airbnb sort of property management. So I've got some connections to that too.
All right. Let's see. How does this affect the property tax? Is the whole property reassessed completely? So you covered that.
Yeah.
So let's see. The Dice on YouTube. Duplex on property zone R2, additional structure of about 3,000 square foot. How many ADUs can I build?
Well, if you've got any kind of multifamily zoning, there's two parts to the multifamily ADU law. First part is the simplest one. Any multifamily property has a by right ability to add 2 new ADUs to it. It can be attached, detached, doesn't matter. There's a second part of the law that's separate, which is called the 25% conversion rule. That allows property owners to add up to 25% more new ADU units based on their existing unit count. So if you've got a fourplex, you could add 25% more units, which would be 1, 8 units, 2, so forth and so on. The cool part about that law is there's no limit, as I said earlier. If you've got a 100-unit building with tuck under parking, you could conceivably create 25 new units out of that. So that's huge. And there are definitely some extra caveats to that. Is under the 25% rule, that only applies to the conversion of existing non-living space. So that would be like a storage room, a rec room, laundry room, but it also includes parking. So if it's got a roof on it and it's got a permit, and it's not living space, it could be converted under the 25% rule.
All right. I'm looking for an ADU contractor in the Silicon Valley area. So again, Sheila, you could give Seth a call and he can refer you to somebody.
Yeah.
And let's see, I have a triplex. Is it possible to combine 2 of the small units and then build an ADU and still have a triplex?
Say that one more time, sorry.
All right, I have a triplex. Is it possible to combine 2 of the small units? So like, I guess they're 2 smaller ones that they want to make into one unit and then add one and and then build an ADU.
You might be able to do that, but of course if you're eliminating an existing unit, then you're definitely going to have to look at what the rent control looks like in your area in terms of removing units from market. That potentially is an issue. In theory, some of that stuff works. Another little thing that's kind of hit or miss, we've been told yes and successfully done it, and we've been told no also, is that some of our big clients that buy really old buildings and where they're like giant 1 or 2 bedroom units, and they reconfigure that space, some of it into ADUs. So that's existing living space, but sometimes they let us do it and sometimes they don't. So there are some little variations of it, but it's real hit or miss. And literally, it's like the plan checker that you walk into that day, what mood he's in. It's crazy.
Yeah, and some people they've jumped on later. Some are asking some of the same questions. Just a reminder that you can go to YouTube and just type in AOA USA and then type in ADU Gold, and this live stream will pop up. If you type in AOA USA, you'll see all of our live streams pop up, and so you could binge watch if you want.
That's great.
Yeah, and so on in the San Francisco Bay Area, they have a fourplex. Can I still build a duplex?
Yes, if you have a fourplex, you still have separately, you've got the by right ability to add 2 units.
Yeah, so
of course you have to have room for it, but yes.
So 1 + 1 basically, right? 1 because of the lot, and then 1 because they have 4.
No, just every lot has a by right ability to build 2.
Okay.
The separate part of it is the 25% conversion rule. Now, some cities have said, yes, you are allowed to do both of them, but we're going to tell you that you can only do one or the other, not both options. The city of Los Angeles, very fortunately, once again, their proponents, they allow you to build both. So you could build the 2 by right ones, plus you could convert space into additional ones under the 25% conversion rule.
Right, and this came up with, someone just commented that you can't build on the front of the property. It needs to be in the back or on the side. Is that still the case?
That is correct. ADUs cannot be in front. However, this is kind of an interesting scenario. Every once in a while, we run into a property where the house sits on the very back of the lot and the whole front of it is empty. And what they will allow us to do, and this is city by city stuff, is that they'll let you build that new structure in front, but they're actually going to call that the house, and that what was originally the house in back will be the ADU. So it's just a name change thing.
Wow. So that's just based on your location, they allow those gymnastics?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
They're just kind of redefining the names of the structures. But in general, yeah, it's up to the front. So to the side and the back is the general rule.
Okay, got it. All right. On a single family resident lot with a loan on it, will the lender allow you to put an ADR? I think maybe they meant ADU, since it changes the character of the property securing the loan.
Yeah, that's going to be, interesting. Every set of loan documents got different boilerplate into it in terms of, construction issues. So you're going to have to look at your specific loan to know for sure the answer to that. But if you're in general adding to your property, you're making it more valuable. So in theory, they should be happy the more you add to it to increase the value, because that makes it a safer loan for them, not a worse loan. But you're definitely going to have to analyze that with your specific lender.
Great. And let's see, Charlotte, I live on a 3-acre lot in unincorporated area of LA County. Can I build an ADU?
Once again, that comes down to it does have that quirky part about that there are certain rural areas that they've already looked at and said, no, we don't need more density here. So it's a no. But in general, we very, very rarely ever run into that. So there's a good chance you still can, but that's a case by case basis.
All right, Red Rider, as I understand it, you can only parcel a lot if you create a street frontage of 10 feet. Can a lot be subdivided if the 10-foot driveway is shared with the former lot?
Yeah, that's a really another good question. And that's the kind of like devil in the detail stuff, how they're going to make that lot split part of it. And that's actually the part about this new SB-9 law that's going to be the most challenging, is because it's a complete redo of the subdivision process. A subdivision process exists now. You can go in and ask for it, but it's a public process. And because it's a public process, it takes a minimum, even just to do a simple lot split, takes a minimum of a year and a half. When they did SB-9, they knew that would not work, so they fast-tracked it. So it is not a public process, it's an ministerial process. So if you walk in with the right set of technical drawings that meet the technical requirements that are already published on the subdivision, it's like getting any other permit. It should be very quick. But the details on how they're going to have access requirements and stuff like that, that remains to be seen. But the state law absolutely makes it mandatory. They find a way to make it work. So those finer details of how that needs to be cut up is something we're anxiously awaiting the guidelines on, so we can help advise people.
Okay, great. And in designing a subdivision, how can I maximize the use of Prop 9 to create higher density?
Well, that's kind of simple, because it is pretty static in that it's 2 units per lot, and you can divide one lot into 2. So there's really nothing beyond that you can do. In the original SB-9 law, they were also going to allow an ADU as well, but that was one thing that they had to take out because they were starting to get some pushback. So now it's just 2 units, and whether you call it a house at an ADU or just 2 units, it's just semantics. It's the same thing. It's 2 units per lot. You can divide one lot into 2 lots. That's it.
Great. And Donald, again, can you clarify the areas in which you can build an ADU related to proximity to transit lines?
Yeah, that's 1/2 mile to any mass transit, and that includes a bus stop, which would be the most common access point, but it could be car sharing. There was another one. I can't remember, but the bus stop one is the easiest one. They did, unfortunately, one thing actually changed in the 2020 law in that regard, is that originally it was just a 1/2 mile as the crow flies, but they clarified it so that it's transversable distance. So that means you either have to be able to walk there or drive there. Fortunately, once again, at Google Maps, you go in and search for bus stop from any address, and it tells you exactly, and it shows you the exact route, both from a pedestrian or a car point of view, how far that is. And that's what I use to measure that out very quickly.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, Seth. We love your energy and your expertise. So thanks again for sharing. Any parting words for us?
Yeah, once again, Jeff, I just have to thank you. We've gotten to know each other a little bit, and we both attended the school investment thing just a little bit ago at the Screwball Center, and you're just a really super cool guy. And I can see why this organization has been so successful, because it started, but you're the dude now, and I really appreciate everything you're doing to keep pushing all of this forward into, it's a new world we live in. It's a lot of it's very challenging, but at least this thing is one thing the government did that actually, I think, helps and can help a lot of people, particularly people in your multifamily world, because under SB-9, it starts as a single family home, but it can end up as a fourplex. Well, we're right in the pocket then for your membership. So thank you for helping me and my company grow. You've been a huge part of that development, and look forward to working with you more in the future.
Great, thanks. Yeah, founder of AOA, Dan Fowler, just incredible man. I love him immensely. It goes beyond words, and just what he's done has been amazing. And so we're just trying to continue to improve and continue to do things. And so you'll notice little things if you're logged into the system. Now it gives you a little warning. We had a member complaint that gave us feedback about that, and within 2 weeks we had that done. And there's so many little things that we're trying to do, and your feedback is really helpful, because we're going to continue to improve. We're going to continue to grow, and you guys are really a part of that. And anyway, so thanks to all of you that are watching, and because your participation is really what matters, like your grassroots participating with the with your politicians, how you interact with your tenants, everything that you're doing and going and doing it the right ways just goes so far. And we just want to continue. We're so motivated to give you more and more information that's going to, those ideas that'll help you make money or keep more. And so we're just going to continue to push on that. And anyway, so thank you, everyone. And again, if you're LA County, definitely tune in tomorrow, and we're just going to continue to get you what you need. And you can always, we're approachable. You can call me. You literally, you can. And that's the thing about AOA. You can always call, and you're going to get a real person during business hours, of course. So anyway, thanks everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Thanks.